set?
Yep.
Okay, it's 7:05, and I call to order the meeting of the Middlebury Development Review Board for August 27th, 2018. First thing I'll do is go over the business agenda. We only have one item, and that's an application request by G6 Realty LLC for a conditional use approval to develop a new single-family home and camp in the Forest District. Property is located at 155 Dragon Brook Road in the Forest District, parcel 009089000. The next, are there any communications from the public on any item not on the agenda? Hearing none. Approval of minutes for May 14th, 2018. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion on the motion.
I have, there are some grammatical things which aren't important, but I have a question about line 187.
One, eight,
It says, Mickey expressed that he does remember that was in the covenants. And that didn't make sense to me. I don't know what it means. Does it mean is the word not missing, or is that, I don't know what that's supposed to mean. Does anyone remember?
I think it refers to the number of units, whether there was a covenant as to how many units could be in the building.
And he does remember.
He does, that's correct. That's,
So it's not missing a word.
I don't believe so.
Okay.
No, if I remember correctly, it was referring to, like David said, the number of units, in that he does remember that
Okay.
that number was in the covenant. Yeah,
Okay.
I think
Thank
I
you.
remember him.
Anything else? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Anybody abstaining? Okay, guess what? Okay. First item. An application request by G6 Realty LLC for final conditional use approval to develop a new single-family home and camp in the Forest District pursuant to sections 610 and 742. Additionally, the applicants are asking for a modification to the road standards pursuant to section 57612. The property is located at 155 Dragon Brook Road in the Forest District, parcel 009089000. Okay, if you would like to, applicants would like to come up to the table, and I'll administer the oath. The following is the DRB oath for applicants, interested persons, and those wishing to participate in this hearing. Do you affirm that the evidence and information you are giving in this proceeding is true and accurate to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I did.
Okay. At this time, I would ask the members of the board if any member has a conflict of interest regarding this application.
No.
Also, at this time, does any member wish to disclose any ex parte conversations concerning this case? And-
I had a conversation with Dave Shaw.
Okay, all right. And just to review, we had a 5 o'clock on-site meeting with the applicants, and John, Rick, and myself were there, and we participated in that informational meeting only. Okay. If you would like to give a summary of the proposed plan.
Yes.
Introduce yourself, too,
Yes,
for the board.
Justice DeVries. I'm actually an appraiser and a consultant for G6 Realty, which is actually the Ryan Goldman family. It's a LLC. And our purpose here tonight is to try to obtain a conditional use permit for a house and the camp by right. I've worked closely with Jen and Dave for about a year here, navigating the process, and we decided that we would put both projects together because the camp is by right in the Forest District, but just to demonstrate the maximum development planned at this, at this stage, and I think for the foreseeable future. So, assume you have the packet here, and maybe afterwards, after I do the summary, if you have any questions on it, I'd be more than happy to try to explain them.
Okay.
I think page 7 and 8 are kind of what I'll paraphrase here. The maps are in the back of your packet, as well as these are the full-size maps here. So essentially, this is a 538.7 acre parcel of land which was purchased in 2016. It's essentially a timberland parcel, been timbered for decades. The plan is to, what we're going to refer to as the house lot, is to build and get the approval for a 4-bedroom, 2,900 square foot house and attached two-car garage. The intended use is a vacation house. The by right request is is a camp and meeting your section 742, et cetera. It's under 500 square feet, actually 494 square feet. It would have a detached garage shed sort of structure, and that would be only used seasonally per the Forest District requirements. The house would be a year-round house, but used as a vacation home. The Forest District zoning is 25-acre minimum zoning, 600-foot road frontages. We clearly meet all that. There's 2,120 feet of road frontage on Dragon Brook Road, which is a Class 3 gravel surface, town-owned, maintains road. Both the house and the campsite are in patch cuts, which, if you refer to page in your brochure, in your packet here, sure, page 12 shows the campsite and the house site. So the total development that's being proposed on this map is potential impact is 77 acres, of which only 2 would be around the camp and 2 around the house. And again, the goal was to build in, in area that's already cut, so we're not disturbing the forest. Power would be coming from a solar array, which is actually in between both sites underground, so there'd be no extension of public utilities coming up from Dragon Brook Road. Let's see, telephone service would be cellular. Rick confirmed that today up there. We would also do fire suppression sprinkler systems, and that's, again, part of the whole road grade issue, which we'll be talking about, and that we'll be discussing in a little more detail. The purpose of that is so that there is an immediate need for the municipal fire service. The access is on an existing logging road. It's been logged for probably decades and decades. This is Joe Nelson, the forester here, and so it's a high quality logging road. It does have a section that's fairly steep, and we have some options to mitigate that. But it's well built. It's been used as a log truck road, not a skid trail, for decades. The bridge that crosses Dragon Brook sustains 100,000 pounds of loaded log trucks. So we feel that would be okay for municipal services and so forth. Okay, and the road was graded, as the committee saw that was out there today, in the steep section in preparation for a harvest this fall. The total development area, including temporary construction, is about 5.5 acres, or approximately 1% of the total, 538.7 acres. There's no subdivision proposed. The only thing is he'll have to take out 2 acres for out of the current use program. He's planning to continue the current use program, continued sustainable forestry. That's his goal, but he is interested in having a house and the camp by right. The current forest management plan is being updated by Joe right now, as I say, for the fall harvest, and I think it's being, the goal is kind of for sustainable forestry as well as wildlife habitat recreation. We consider this a fairly low-density development relative to the total parcel, in keeping with this area. As you perhaps know, this Ripton is right here, so there's rural residential properties, around 7 on this road here, which dead ends up about 3/4 of a mile from the property. And we feel it's going to blend in with the neighborhood, and that the future land use is going to be continued sustainable forestry. The phasing, which is outlined on the last October 21st supplemental on the last page, explains that he plans to build the camp first and then the house second. If we get approval for 2 years, we'd like to try to get that to 3. After 3 years, it would be expiring, Dave, right? So we would be back to square one, essentially, to have to come back in if he doesn't build within the 3 years. But his plan is potentially the camp, and in the future, the house. I think that's,
I'm confused about the suppression system.
okay.
How's that gonna work? You're gonna have a tower, or what, how are you gonna feed,
Sprinkler system.
where are you getting your water from?
They'll have to build a
Tower?
a holding tank of some sort with a pump system, I'm assuming,
I think they
from the
also-
well.
it's-
It'd be
they
coming
also
off the
have
well.
Chemicals, they have some sort
Storage system, it could be chemical. Right. Haven't quite got to that detailed engineering, but that certainly,
It's out there.
Yeah,
It's out there. It's,
It's usually a cistern.
the chemical?
no, water.
No.
Storage system and then a shallow well pump in there to,
Oh.
pump through the fire suppression system
Okay.
when it's needed.
Sometimes they're dicey, the private sprinkler systems.
What's that?
They are dicey.
I can't speak to that. I just can tell you they're out there in place.
I mean, that wouldn't be a requirement of this anyway, the suppression system.
No.
right, can I just expand a little bit? The idea of the fire suppression system, one is obviously this is in a rural area, it's remote.
Yeah.
And to basically, save property values, property, et cetera. However, it also is a reason for hoping that you'll accept the road for the camp, which will have the road as it is, which is road number 1. And then it also helps as far as the house site goes. But that's part of, so that the municipal fire and rescue isn't as essential as it might need to be.
Will you be having battery storage for the solar power?
Yes, absolutely.
I wasn't able to make the visit earlier. How wide is the bridge? You said something about the weight rating of it. How wide is it?
It's probably 12 feet
12
wide.
feet.
It's a very short span.
Kevin,
One lane.
that gentleman didn't take the oath.
What's that?
The gentleman in the audience did not take the oath.
Did you take the oath when I,
I'm sorry, I didn't.
okay.
I should have, I guess.
You can both have it, pull a chair up so both of you can,
Yeah.
if I can find that again.
Makes sense if Joe's gonna input, then.
Okay, do you affirm that the evidence and information you are giving in this proceeding is true and accurate to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Thank you, Ann. Regarding I know we've got different alternatives for the rerouting of the road, but in any of the instances, will that rerouting be done prior to either the house or the camp? being built?
We're requesting that it be done only for the house, the second phase of the construction, that you allow the camp, which can only be used 90 days out of the whole year because of your forest zoning use requirements of a camp, of a seasonal camp. So we would, he's got four-wheel drive, we all made it up today, standard four-wheel drive vehicles, so that's what he's hoping to just use that. And then at the time, it would be a condition of the house approval that we would do, we're preferring option number 4, which has the least impact on the forest, cost, et cetera. I mean, it seems a waste not to use the main part of the road, which is well-built, access, et cetera. Plus, the option number 3 that we can talk about has some wetland, class 2 wetlands, whereas everything else is all approved, all class 3 wetlands.
Is there a reason why you measured the gradient in 100-foot lengths rather than 50-foot lengths? That concerns me quite a lot.
I have to talk to Lincoln Applied Geology of why he did it that way.
So they might do it properly?
We could do it. Absolutely.
Because, you know, a 16%, an 18% grade over 100 feet could turn into a 22% grade plus a 24% grade over 50 feet, depending on...
Yeah, we could absolutely get you that quickly.
I think that's something the board should discuss together, because there's a significant cost to you redoing the grading plan, so why don't we add that to our deliberation?
Okay.
There's no, and to say that that's not proper isn't quite true. We don't have any requirement for 50-foot intervals on a grading plan. 100-foot intervals might be appropriate for something of this scale. So
But
let's
the
discuss that.
regulations do call for a gradient not exceeding 10% over 50 feet.
That's correct.
So if it isn't measured, how do you
I'm not
know?
talking about the gradient, I'm talking about the interval on the map of the grading plan. And if that interval is more than 50 feet, that might be appropriate for something of this scale. So let's discuss that as a group.
Okay.
Before we give direction to them to redo the grading plan, because there is a cost to that.
Just on that point, we've offered, and it was discussed at the preliminary site inspection, that if you want, and this was done by mapping by Lincoln Applied Geology, these grades that you have here, but we're more than willing to do on-site, specific grades if you want that. So, yeah.
And you do grades for alternatives 3 and 4 as well?
We would absolutely, yeah. We're pushing for 4.
But right now, we have no way of knowing what that is, really.
Maybe Joe could speak to it. He flagged
I-
that
Yeah,
option number 4.
and I measured it with my equipment, with clinometer, which Dave knows. It's not the most sophisticated equipment, but I measured the slope on the existing road section that we would bypass and on the new section of grade of option 4. And I came up with 22% in some sections on the existing road, and I had short sections of possibly 50 feet that were about 18% on option number 4. But as I pointed out at the site visit, the section that we would be bypassing
Right, I see that.
is about 400 feet and with a 600-foot length.
Yeah.
So it would take us 600 feet to get to the same point, and so an additional 200 feet over that change in elevation does significantly reduce the average grade across that section. If you see, do you understand?
I understand. That's not really my concern, but I understand.
So at one point when we leave Dragonwood Road, they have a 16% grade, and all the way up to 24% grade, is that what I'm saying?
Yes.
That's a big leap there. It doesn't fall anything, it's 16% over to that.
That's the that'd be the drive to the house, but the, we don't have the grades there, but I believe there isn't anything.
We walked it,
We walked
everybody
much
saw
over.
the grades. They're not a
Yeah,
problem there.
Basically, if I can just say, as somebody who went there and saw it today, you cross the bridge and you start coming up the hill. There is a steeper incline part of the way up, but, it's manageable. Where the house wants to go is down the hill.
Right.
At a very casual grade, and if you keep going up to where the camp is, it's not bad. There's just one section that's fairly
This whole
steep.
drive, those photos are all along
Okay,
here,
yeah.
to that drive, to the house lot, so these are just photos of this whole section. Basically starting here, the street scene here, at that 16% grade and going to here. This is rerouted
all
around the
private,
class 2
why do we
wetlands,
are
so this is
concerned
the
with the
existing
grade?
road that you're gonna see in the photographs, and that's where the
This is
drive
all
would be.
private from here from driving, why are we concerned with the grade for equipment to get in
For emergency access to it.
there? Okay, so if there was a fire up there, it'd be all in the pit before anybody got there.
Yeah, well, we also,
Nobody lives there.
More or less, yes.
also,
Huh?
yeah,
More or less.
Yes, EMS.
yeah, EMS has to be able to get there too. Okay, any other questions at this time?
I have a question. The camp is buildable as of right if we can deal with the road issue.
Correct.
I don't really see where you get a garage for your camp,
How about a
especially
shed?
one bigger than the footprint of the camp.
I'd get, let's call it a shed, store a tractor or something in
A
it.
700 and something square foot shed with a 500 square foot camp.
Was the battery storage gonna be in the shed? Potentially.
It's possible we hadn't got through that engineering yet. And we may have to deal with the water storage for that. But we're more than happy to, if you feel it should be the same square footage as the camp, that's certainly fine.
She said that.
Is that footage the total footage of the garage or the footprint of it?
It's the footprint, but it's like 1 1/4 story, can store lumber or something up above it, that's my thinking.
Right, so it's
On the
a
rack.
24 by 30
Right,
building, basically.
right.
Yeah.
But the solar array is gonna be at the house side and not the campsite.
It's actually equidistant, right in between the two.
Circular.
Right, it's
Yeah.
literally in between the two sites, and there'll be underground utilities from there.
Okay.
This is a patch cut also, so we're not cutting any trees. It's brush right now, it faces south. Be down the lower part of it, so from a visibility standpoint, it's minimal.
Do you plan on having the access at the gate so that the firefighters and so on can get in there when there's no one at home, as it were?
Yes, that's been discussed with Dave Shaw, and rescue, yes.
Don't they generally keep the gate locked and give the fire department a key?
It's a combination, yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it doesn't really matter,
Right,
as long as they have access to the
Correct.
combination.
correct.
What type of outdoor storage are you anticipating near this garage by the camp?
It was just something to store, it was just something to store machinery, equipment.
Right, but there's a reference to outdoor storage.
Could you explain that a little bit more?
Somewhere in your paperwork, it talks about storing stuff for the house outside the garage at the camp.
The goal was to have it all within, if it's 720 or if it's 500 square feet. Hold on for a second. Let's change that to attached, 1.5 story storage shed as opposed to garage. Doesn't have to be the garage.
So for a 90-day maximum use, you need a shed that's half, again, as big as the camp.
Well,
Almost
we're willing to lower it. It's to store four-wheeler or, skis, snowshoes, tractor, small tractor.
The fire suppression system, if there is going to be one, is going to take up a fair amount of room somewhere. I don't know if that's their plan to put it in the shed, but they're gonna need something pretty big to house it.
Does that need to
Give
be
a-
a heated space, or?
That's however it's designed, but the body, if it's gonna be liquid, the body of water is gonna need to be stored somewhere.
Below
Unless
frost
you-
level.
Unless you bury it in the ground, or I don't know, that's up to you guys, but.
We haven't gotten to that engineering yet, but
Does the camp include outbuildings? Square footage for the camp?
I believe it does. That's why I put it in there, but.
The definition does not.
What I thought.
The camp itself is limited in size.
Yeah.
In the forest district.
Yeah, I knew that.
No, I was just looking. If they single out an accessory use, but they don't single out accessory structures in any of the districts anyways.
It would be fairly easy to build a 500 square foot camp and a 2,000 square foot accessory building. Go in a larger camp.
More than happy to have a condition on the outbuildings that's, reasonable. 500 square feet would be plenty, I believe, for the client.
Yeah, but then you got two
Two
structures. And only one's allowed, I think.
Well, we should discuss that.
Yeah, okay.
Could we attach the accessory use to the,
Well, as long as the total's under 500 square feet, I would say. Somebody asked me, how come 500 square feet? It's a function of a sheet of plywood. Right?
Do the regs, rules say you're not allowed to have accessory buildings
I don't know.
specifically?
That's why I asked.
how about a temporary, steel canvas sort of thing just for storage? Just,
I think the point here is only that a garage would not be as of right, regardless of the road situation.
okay.
So if you guys have a deliberation later, I would suggest that we analyze the definition of accessory structure and really see what you're allowed to mandate and what you're not.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good idea.
Okay, would you like to, we're having technical difficulties with our screen this evening, but could you sort of go through the different options of the different roads?
Yes.
If you are-
So our option number one is the existing, road. And we're hoping to have that for the seasonally used rustic camp.
And this is number one, figure one, right?
Yes.
That's what we're-
Yeah. So it's here, and
Okay.
this is the one with it's the one with the grades on it
Yep.
too, if you get to that. So.
Yep.
So if say we approve that,
Here,
then
right?
that would be the only road that would access the house and the camp?
Yes.
So that just where we walk, we just branch off with
That would be
long-
considered a drive.
Yeah.
That's it, yes. Yeah. And we would be open to other, Joe and I were discussing other ways of mitigating that steep section other than what we'll get to option 4, but that would be our first preference. So option,
I'm sorry, what is the maximum grade on that option one? I'm a little.
24%.
24.
Those are kind of hard to read, but this is the one with the full.
There.
Right there.
This is hard, that's hard to read, but this is the one. It's all about this section right here.
At the turn, right
Yeah,
there.
right, kind of starting from, we have it flagged at there where it starts at like
Got
60%.
it.
Yeah, basically here.
Okay, thank you.
And then option number 2 is least desirable.
Skip that.
I just want to go over the way this came down. And again, working with Dave and Jen to navigate it, was to meet the 10% grade requires this sort of a switchback, which takes 5.5 acres of forest out, wildlife, etc. So when we brought this in this spring, it was like, well, can we come up with some other options? So we have 2 or 3 other options. And so option 3 would be coming in from the northern boundary up here, which is an existing logging road. Should run diesel, I guess. And so this is already existing here. You do have a class 2 wetland here. We've only done preliminary wetland work here, but this would be across here. All the grades would be maximum 15, 16%, something like that. And then that would be coming in just below where the house drive is. Okay, this area is pretty flat here, so you're hitting a much lower grade at that point. But again, this is taking more forest out. We have the wetlands issues, which
Taking less.
may be an issue.
Justice, is that option, is that completely on the
Yes.
owner's property?
Yeah, the boundary is literally kind of where,
Just up from that?
just up from that, yeah.
Okay.
Kind of where the arrow in that elevation is.
Okay.
Yeah.
To me, that looks like the road is shorter.
Well, it's-
Overall, it is. It is, but it's all brand new road. That's a skid trail basically that's there right now.
Okay.
So it's got some wet pockets left over from logging, so
So there's a logging road there.
that is for this portion of it.
For about a half of
For
it.
the blue dots.
Yeah.
And then it's new cutting across, and it does cross a water course, which is a class 2 well.
Yeah,
And
What about the grade?
grade is very, there's one
Nice.
short section that might be 20% for about 20 feet or 30 feet, maybe not even that much, and then it levels off. So the grade is it's quite nice on that option 3.
And then option 4 is essentially looping around the 18-24% grades, which is 600 feet, roughly,
600 foot.
for total length, about 0.4 acres to build a 12-foot road there. And the grades are,
There's a couple, about 20% for short distances.
but most of them are 10 to 15, 16, that sort of thing.
That's with a 100-foot interval. This map is a 100-foot interval, right? On the grade?
They haven't
Every
measured the
100 feet,
grade
yeah.
of the roads.
Yes, I believe it is. Again, the problem with this mapping was, and the topo, they're actually here, but they're hard to read because of the size. This is on 77 acres.
Yep.
We didn't survey the whole thing out. There is no subdivision of this at all. It's all one property owner, no subdividing.
Right.
But they're about 100-foot intervals. But because of the size of this acreage, we ran into some mapping problems that are a little problem to read.
May I ask, when you're saying this option is 4 acres, you've done a.
0.4 acres.
Oh, okay, I was gonna say, and that is based on roadbed only, not all the, I mean, you don't really know fully yet the cuts and fills, right? I mean,
Right, but you'd probably be looking at 20 feet.
so you're
And-
basically,
And a fair amount of option 4 is a existing skid road.
and that's where that number's coming from, it's like 20 by 600 feet,
Exactly what I-
divided by 43,560, yeah,
That's exactly what I did.
thanks.
Option 4 looks longer than option 3, but yet option 3 takes out more forest?
Option 3 is longer than option 4.
Not by much.
I will say these 3 and 4 were done by my office and not by Lincoln Applied Geology, so I'm not gonna guarantee the scale on that. Everything else is here, but 3 and 4, we added here towards the end of the project here, the last month or so, and those were done by my office, so this is definitely, 3 is definitely longer than than 4. And again, this is just approximate, where Joe was in here, he flagged it, we went over the mapping with the aerials, so it may be a very different, exactly a different shape to meet the
It's pretty
less steep
close.
section.
It's pretty close to what we depicted there.
If you go out, you can see where the flagging is and so forth on it.
What I'm getting at, I think you and I are getting at sort of this similar thing, is that when I look at, in this packet, when I look at option 3, it seems to have considered where the culvert goes through and a cut and a fill, right? And the others.
I can't hear you very well.
Oh, I'm sorry. So when I look at option 3 in the
Yeah.
book, it seems to have considered where the culverts are happening and the required cuts and fills to get there. The other ones look like they're eyeballing the width of a road that goes through. Is that fair to
Yeah,
say?
but there's no water courses on option 4.
Okay.
Whereas there are on option,
All
there's
right.
2 water courses on option 3 that we have to cross, and there are none on option.
Oh, okay. So it's
And there's
apples to
class 2
apples.
wetlands on 3.
Well, right.
I mean, there's a major water course that has to be crossed there.
What was your estimate of the effect on trees for option 3 compared to the 0.4 acres in option 4?
I think we considered that it was going to be more. We're not sure about what was going to take on the existing logging road, I mean, it's overgrown, hasn't been used in a while, so there may be more, cutting and filling trees to be lost there, I guess.
It's pretty minimal. I mean, it's, on a 500 acre parcel, if we're looking at, a half an acre or 3/4 of an acre.
I suppose one could make the same argument about 5 acres and the switchback.
On the switchback, option 1, that's what it was. Yeah, we didn't like option number 1 at all.
That was like 5 or 6 acres.
Option
If-
2,
if-
we didn't, I mean, that was
Option 2.
expensive. It was.
And, we went to these other options because of the amount of force that was impacted, and cost. It just seemed overkill for one house and a rustic camp to meet the 10%, grade, and that's why we were hoping there'd be some sort of a waiver, and we've offered these other options, but. And we didn't explore all the wetlands on that. There might be wetlands on that as well. We believe on option 1 and option 4 that we've covered the wetlands. The certifications from Zapata Corage in your packet is with road option number 1. The house lot and the drive to the camp, all approved.
What's involved crossing a wetland as far as?
It could be, I have a project in Ferrisburg, they made salamander crossing culverts for them, held them up 4 or 5 months, a lot of cost. It could be, and it could trigger Army Corps of Engineers. So right now with class 3, which is option 1 and option 4, we should be clear on Army Corps of Engineers. So I just don't want to open up that can of salamanders, so to speak, because I know that the wetlands is a huge, is a huge issue. And again, if you walked the flagging for option, 3, it's going through a lot of the forest. So, again, our goal is to have a minimal impact. We're trying to build in the patch cuts and try to use these. I understand the grade, and that's why we look at option 4, that should be fairly clean.
And with the option 3, it's a class 3 wetland. And, it's, the fill amount is under the threshold for Army Corps of Engineer. I'm sorry, because I did that in the previous project. But might require state fill.
Are there any access easements through these existing skid or logging roads to adjacent properties?
The option 3 is an access to an adjacent property.
I'm sorry, as the property exists now, do the roads that we're talking about, does the existing road provide access to an adjacent logging parcel or anything?
One does.
One does.
Option 3.
Oh,
There's a right-of-way, I believe,
Right.
across that section to the parcel to the north.
Right, so in this existing logging road, there is a right-of-way. There used to be a camp here that burned 5 or 6 years ago, which was right here on the property, and then it goes to an existing property up here.
Got
That's
it.
the one right-of-way.
okay.
No, I got my eyes a little closer than that, okay. I got a couple of questions I'm not gonna ask him in open session, I'm gonna ask him in deliberative session, so I don't.
So they're not questions for the applicant?
No. They would be questions for our staff.
Okay, on proposed option 4, that starts on the map that we have, grades.
Yes.
Where that starts, does that pick up the 18 or the 22%?
It's, it's, where we saw the flagging should be right about there, which is in the 16 range, okay? And then it would come up, and then come up just below,
Okay, so,
ways below this road.
so we're good, the 16, we still.
Yeah. We're gonna avoid the 24, so it kinda comes like
Okay,
this.
and we're gonna avoid the 18?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
And as I say, again, I apologize, this wasn't engineered, this red
Okay.
loop, but it's,
and,
yes.
and the highest slope that we're guessing for that,
18 to 20.
18 to 20 for
For
a
fairly
short period, short
Yes.
distance, okay.
Okay, I see what you're saying, yep. So if you left this road here, you know what grade that is? You know any idea what the grade is here? Would it be 24? Would this road be a 24?
Is this the town road?
Yes.
No, that's good.
Okay, so in other words, what I'm saying is from here to here would be roughly the same?
The grade here and the grade here?
Yes.
Well, I guess if you look at the.
If you look at the topo, it looks like it might be.
Yeah.
Hmm?
I mean, everybody that drove up there, when we drove, you drive this section right here, it's like,
This, I assume, is the major,
that is the major road.
You drove up the Logan Road, open
Yeah,
the
we
gate.
drove up here,
Yeah, because I walked that before. The place is pretty steep.
right in here, it's pretty steep. Yeah.
It's a log truck road versus a skid trail out, I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
it's pretty
I
well.
mean,
Nice
the log
road.
trucks had no problem.
Very nice road.
Yeah.
Culverted stones on the culvert heads, that sort of thing. It's the lower part.
So there's a sale going slated for this year.
Timber harvest, yes.
now,
And the last time it was harvested was 10 years ago.
No, I think it was, yeah, probably
2009, I think.
2009.
8 or 9 years ago.
how much improvements to the, your request is to leave this existing road for the camp. How much improvements to that existing road would you be doing?
We'd be doing a fair amount, because we want to make it, I mean, it's, everybody drove up there was Subarus that drove up there, was no problem, but we would resurface most of that section
Okay,
with a, we wouldn't pave it, but we would,
Gravel.
probably a, inch and a half or less, crushed stone, and,
but would the drainage ways be eliminated?
no.
Okay,
No, we're gonna keep the drainage, we're gonna keep the crowning, and there's some culverts in there. We might have to put in an extra culvert. Right now, we
But-
drove
but-
through a couple water bars.
yeah,
We
that's what I
put the-
mean, would the water bars be eliminated?
They would be reduced and spread out. We still need them to be effective, but, and I think that's one of the big issues that the fire truck,
Well,
fire
especially the fire and the emergency.
those are, I had those, that was just resurfaced, that little
Yes.
section, and I told Kevin Jackson, he's the guy that did the work for me, to make sure that that's gonna work if there's a heavy rain.
Yeah, okay.
And, I mean, we certainly want it to work once we make it more permanent, and we'll use a better surface material, and crown it. So we won't have to have those steep little water
You're a
bars.
native, aren't you?
What's that?
You're a native Vermonter?
No, I'm not.
Ever heard of the mud season?
Oh, I have.
I was just wondering if you,
How long have you been a forester?
30 years.
okay, so you've heard of the mud season?
Yes, I have.
And you know there's times when foresters can't get into the woods?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So this road wouldn't apply to that?
Well, I'm not gonna be logging up there in the winter,
Okay.
in the mud season, that's for sure.
I think there's a good enough base, and it's well-established. It's had 100,000-pound trucks
It's
back
been
and forth
used
for
quite a
20
When it's
years.
frozen in the middle of winter? Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
One thing to keep in mind, the emergency vehicles going up are gonna be loaded. The log trucks are loaded coming down,
True.
not going up, and that could make a big difference.
Other questions at this time? Okay,
Excuse me, could I just add one last bit of testimony here? So, we spent a lot of time with Dave Shaw and Tina on the road issue. The client is absolutely agreeable to some sort of agreement where he's understands that vehicle fire and rescue may not be able to get up to this property in a reasonable period of time. They may have to go to alternative smaller vehicles or something to that effect. And again, the point, I just want to be clear that I don't believe there's anything in the zoning ordinances that say that it's a mandate that fire and rescue service the properties. And the issue is, if you can approve it and we have to have an agreement, that's fine. But I don't believe legally there's anything that requires it, that fire and rescue is something that we assume that we have as a taxpayer, that it's a benefit, but I don't believe there's anything legally with it. So, as we've navigated through this, we've tried to, work and mitigate it and totally understand. The water bar issue clearly is something Dave, Shaw, and I talked about, and a single axle truck today would have trouble on that, okay? But if it's going to be lowered, maybe a smaller one would be. Tina said 2 of her vehicles would be able to get up the way it is today. She told me that when we were out there. So I just throw that out, that the applicant is certainly understands that it's a remote rural area. He's potentially building the camp, seasonally used, and the house eventually. If he doesn't build it after 3 years, we're back to square one, and there won't be a house there
So does that mean,
without coming back in.
once he starts construction within 3 years, he's okay, right?
I believe the regulation is substantial construction, so he has to be, right, Dave, and we talked about this, he has to be, he's gotta have concrete and a deck on or something to that effect, that he's really going ahead with it. The other issue is the taxation. I talked to Bill Benton the day before he retired to try to get some estimate on taxes, and I haven't been able to get that yet, but that's also an issue, also is what the carrying costs are gonna be on a house up there and camp. So he's looking at that.
Make a motion to go into deliberative
no,
session.
okay, not yet, okay. Any other questions from the board at this time? Okay, at this time, I'm gonna open it up to the public. Is there anybody in the public that wishes to address this concern? Hearing none? Any other questions from the board at this time? If not, a motion is in order.
Oh, you ready for me?
Yes, I am now.
I move that we go into deliberative session.
Is there a second? And seconded. Discussion on the motion. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. We will be going into deliberative session to talk about it, whether we have an answer. We don't know how long it's gonna be, but if it's a long time, then we'll have staff notify you of our results.
We really appreciate everybody's time, and I'd
Thank
like
you.
to also thank the zoning office for being very, very helpful throughout the process.
This book was very
Okay, we're out of executive session. Is there a motion?
I move to make a motion that we, drawing a blank. Decide, or, I don't know, help me out here. Approve, sorry, the motion that's in front of us, and then shall I read the motion?
Can you separate the two paragraphs? Can we have three motions?
Well,
I think the first two are
Yeah.
combined with what was proposed, and then the
Yes.
third motion would be, well, the second motion, so to speak, would
Yes.
be
okay.
separate. I move that the Middlebury Development Review Board, having reviewed the application submitted and having heard and duly considered the testimony presented at the public hearing of August 27th, 2018, approve this request for final conditional use approval to construct a seasonal camp utilizing the existing Forest Road access with modifications to the existing water bars and a new top coat of stone. Further, I move that the Middlebury Development Review Board, having reviewed the application submitted and having heard and duly considered the testimony presented at the public hearing of August 27th, 2018, approve this request for final conditional use and road waiver approval to construct a single-family home subject to the design and construction of an access road that staff confirms acceptable to both the Middlebury Fire Department and Middlebury Regional Emergency Medical Services personnel regarding emergency vehicle access, or satisfy the access road requirement in section 705.
I'll second that.
It's been moved in second. Is there discussion on the motion?
Yes. If for some reason he builds his camp first, in the first 2 years, and he hasn't started his house, when does he start negotiating for the access? When does the 10% grade come into play? Because it doesn't say when.
I don't understand.
Prior to construction of the house?
Prior to the
It would
prior
have-
to issuing the building permit.
Exactly.
That's right. So the road has to meet the 10% prior to issuing a building permit.
Or have an acceptable agreement between staff and fire and emergency?
But they're not gonna issue a building permit.
Right,
until they
I
have
don't
a
like
lot.
that. I think you either stick with the 10% grade that our standards are, or I don't think we should be getting into granting waivers. Well, it's 12% here and it's 13% here. I think we should stay with our
Well,
proposal.
okay, well, we have the motion,
Yeah.
and it's been seconded. You've
I
commented.
understand. I
Okay,
just-
are there any other comments on the motion? All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All those in favor raise their hands. 3 in favor. All those opposed? 2 opposed.
Wait a minute, how, you got 3 and 2 and there's 7 of you here. So,
1, 2, 3,
I thought thought it was 5 and.
5 and 2, yeah.
Okay,
What'd I
that's
say?
what I counted, but 3 and 2.
Oh, did I say 3? Okay. All right,
Motion carries.
motion carries, yes. Is there other motions? Donald?
I move that this approval be understood to that this approval, the approval as stated in the last motion, be honored for 3 years, as opposed to the customary 2 years.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there discussion on the motion?
I think he needs to amend that
I think we're setting a precedent, start extending applicants to another year, but that's just my opinion.
I think you might need to amend your motion to say that it's the building permit, the term of the building permit that
I
you're
see.
extending, not the
Not the zoning.
approval, because the
not the
approval has a
zoning approval.
different time
Okay.
frame.
Okay.
Is there,
I think, right?
will the person that seconded
So-
amend their second to include the building permit?
Yes.
So that means the building permit can be issued within 3 years?
It means once the building permit is issued, it's good for 3 years.
No, no.
Okay.
The building permit would only be good for 2 years. What we're giving them, we're saying that we are willing to extend this approval from 2 to 3
I
years.
apologize. So Dave's
This-
motion is exactly right.
Zoning permit, yeah.
Yep, thank you.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right, so we're staying with that. All in favor, is there any more discussion on that? All in favor of that motion, raise your hands.
I'm having trouble with my hand.
Or
4,
your foot.
opposed? 3, motion's carried.
You did a good job, Mr. Newton.
Not done?
I'm not done yet.
You got more?
Yes, I can find it. Maybe I can't. Other business.
Do you close that hearing yet?
I just had a question for staff with the email that went around with the, administratively, we all, I think, agreed that the beeswax folks can do their thing on Exchange Street. Is there any retail there at all, or is that strictly manufacturing?
I am not sure of that, and I will find that
In the
out.
back, Brian Carpenter owns that, that's his admin office.
I'm sorry, what was that?
You're talking about the Sears store?
Yeah,
Brian Carpenter, that's his admin office back there.
Right. I just didn't know if the beeswax folks that are gonna take over the Sears front portion, if it's strictly, manufacturing, or are they gonna retail out of there too? The reason I ask is I didn't know if that may
I think, yeah. that-
congest things a little but I don't know.
Well, if you've got parking for 25 people. and you got
Employees, and then you got
25
retail, how does that
employees and
work?
you're trying to run
Yeah,
retail.
that was my point.
You and Ann both
Okay.
kind of asked that question, so I will find that out.
And didn't I ask about a different industrial use after beeswax moves out? It wasn't clear to me whether that replacement industrial use business would need to come back.
If another industrial use went into that space, it would have to be extremely similar. Okay, there would have to be no negative impacts regarding the decision that was rendered.
So in other words, it's the would they need to submit an application again? The replacement people?
Yes.
Okay.
So where's the staff gonna park? Where's the 25 employees gonna park?
There's 25 parking spots right in front of that building. The site plan shows 25, 20,
The side.
yeah, right where the existing customer parking was.
Yeah.
There's 23, and then there's an additional 10 spaces on the other side. So it meets our requirements for parking.
Work for manufacturing.
That's correct.
I asked about the retail, because if they throw that in there, then they may
I'm
be
just
short
trying
on.
to figure how the truck delivery are gonna get in there on the back. There's a loading dock in the back.
So they had Sears go in and out.
Yeah, there's a
there, right?
loading dock in the back.
Yeah, I know that, so,
But there's no parking back there.
yeah.
Does there need to be?
Well, no, I'm just trying to make sure that if there's any retail gonna be in there, there won't be any parking for
Yeah.
retail.
Correct.
Well, that was John's.
Yes,
No, that's a question. That's
yeah.
something I need
They're
to,
not doing any retail now in their current location.
I don't know that they do. They operate out of Bristol right now.
Yes.
If they wanted to have retail later, would they have to make an application?
I think they would. They would have to have a zoning permit.
Right.
Whether it'd come back before the board or not, it would depend on their site plan.
So you would be dealing with the parking at that time? Both for employees and customers?
Other business?
I would just like to keep the running tally of things that we should ask the planning commission to weigh in on, and add tonight's camp driveway requirement to the next time we have the clearinghouse discussion with them. Make sure that we ask that.
And can we clarify the accessory building issue and its maximum size maybe for a camp? I mean, if they think that's relevant, it seems to me highly relevant.
Yeah, there are other ways of doing it in the zoning to put a percentage of the square foot of the parent structure or a percentage of square foot of living space, or they tend to be as honored in the violation as honored in the breach, right?
Yes, but we
Beautiful.
find that with many things, and we just have to do the best we can.
Well, it brings the issue before somebody to think about it.
And again, I'm gonna bring up my concerns about Route 7 and 125 in East Middlebury, that mess that keeps piling up down there. That's clearly in violation of the original zoning, and I think it's time that we do something about it. It's a mess. It's a disgrace to the, everything.
Is it on Aussie, you mean
First
116?
first place on Aussie Road, right?
Yeah, 116 and Route 7.
Yes,
Okay. Yes.
125 and what, 7
Okay.
to, well, no, you're right, 116,
116.
yes.
And what do you have a suggestion?
Hmm?
Do you have a suggestion?
He's in violation of his zoning permit.
And what's our step? We don't have a,
I am just suggesting to staff that there's a clear violation of that permit. He hasn't complied with, I mean, we're gonna only have one truck there. I mean, you can't even get in the yard.
I understand that.
It's a
I
mess.
just wanna know the direction that we're,
I think if you look at the original application, it'll tell you what he can and can't do.
exactly. And you would like staff to,
No, I think it's terrible. I'm not even gonna address I'm not even gonna look at the airport road thing where there was only gonna be 3 vehicles out front, and now you can't even drive through there. I mean, that is a disgrace. That's a laughing stock. We got hoodwinked on that in good shape, but anyway. What good is zoning?
What building is that you're talking about? I don't know that.
the
Across
mechanic,
from Plouffe, up on,
Okay.
Schoolhouse Hill
where all
Road.
the vehicles are gonna park behind the berm and no cars out front.
We had a,
Go look at it now.
we had a discussion on the, what the term warehouse meant during
Yeah,
that section. But you're right, we did get hoodwinked on that one too.
so in regard to that, the recourse is the selectmen have to,
Forward.
select board, I'm sorry, the select board has to,
No, I don't necessarily agree. I think we need to look.
well, until they come for another permit, the zoning office can't, there's no enforcement.
Yes, there is.
Okay, well,
Huh?
what's the enforcement that the zoning office?
You ask, you
Huh?
ask again, you ask
Yes,
again.
yes,
You ask again, and then you go to the select board and ask them for money to sue him.
okay, so
The
that's,
sheriff delivers his little note or whatever. And then you hope that something happens after you spent that money. But, yeah, so we've been out talking to the guy on 7 and 125 several different times.
I went by there today and I could not believe what it looked like today. I just,
He's patched the fence and it's fallen back down.
yeah, the fence is all down and the garbage is everywhere. It's just,
Working on the property next to that, we're working on the property next to that one.
Yeah.
Ossey Road's got a lot of stuff we're working on.
He is, at least I will say that he's keeping it mowed on the Route 7 side. At least it looks a lot better than it did.
I think the
There's still an
landowner,
awful accumulation of junk.
I think the
Does
landowner's
it
doing
somehow
that.
fall within the junk ordinance or whatever, and the police department can
One
go?
man's junk, another man's treasure, I
Police,
guess.
Yeah,
In his particular case.
but doesn't Lee still own that?
Yes, he does.
So he was the applicant, so you go to Lee, Mr. Lee, and have him clean it up. You don't go to Mr. Clark. So,
I agree.
but people tell me about it all the time. They say, look at that mess down there. Look what you created. You know, gateway to Middlebury.
What's happening with Rouse?
Hmm?
What happened and what is happening with Rouse?
Underway.
My
They're working.
understanding with
Come
Rouse,
along.
They're putting the grate in, they're working. They got his pond in.
he got stymied by the state,
Yep.
Yeah, I heard that.
and it just pushed back his whole
Mhm.
building schedule, especially the concrete folks that
Sure,
he had.
those guys got schedules too.
yes, they do, and they left.
Yeah.
And he had to put in a pond that he wasn't wasn't
miss a
gonna,
meeting?
didn't have to do under
Ah,
the original application.
And what about
Seven
that?
and 116.
There's still outstanding stuff there?
Long ago,
Still outstanding
before
stuff
I
there,
joined the
yep,
board,
I see.
even.
yep.
What's
So-
else?
But then there's
What's
another
outstanding?
one out on Airport.
Still haven't seen an application on that yard they're using in the
It's-
back, on the other side of the wetland.
At least it's out on Airport Road.
Haven't seen
so
an
you don't really
application
see
for
it.
that at
That's
all.
just
The
like
deadline was
December.
September 1st, 2017, to give us an application
here.
for that. That was in the certificate of occupancy we issued. It was a conditional
It's like-
certificate of occupancy, so there's that. There's cars in front of the building again. There's only supposed to be 24 cars in front of the building line. And he's got it all stacked up again, so. We're working on another letter, but there've been several letters, so you kind of have to ask yourself if we're ready for enforcement on that.
Was the lighting problem solved?
No, we're still waiting for a letter from Peck Electric to verify that our readings were incorrect and that they were installed according to the spec.
So you're talking, what are you talking about?
Deneker?
That's what I thought of.
Yeah.
So, have you got the letter composed?
Yeah,
I want a copy.
okay.
I buttonholed Nick, I had breakfast with Nick and Victor this morning, and I mentioned it. And he said, well, what's he in violation of? So if I have the letter, I'll meet with him next week.
Great. Yeah, any pressure we can apply before going the legal route is always a good thing.
Yeah.
Where you go to breakfast now?
At Rosie's.
Oh, Jesus.
Any other, under other
When's our
business?
next meeting?
At this point, there's nothing scheduled.
I move
Okay.
adjournment.
There's a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We're adjourned, Kathy. Thank you.
Money.